Well, howdy.
Howdy.
It's great to be back in Texas, and in particular back in Burleson County. I'm going to go off script for a little bit, and the reason I can do this is because none of my team is here except for James. James knows that I do this from time to time. The rest of them sort of freak out when I do. But I want to talk about a few things that are vitally important to us. These are troubling times in our country today. One of the worst things that's going on today that many of you may not realize is over half our states don't teach our students about the Constitution. Now, that's like driving a car without knowing what's in the owner's manual. And because of that, we see people that make decisions because they don't understand how our government works. And because of that, they're willing to trade our freedoms and our rights and our liberties for the false security that they think that comes from a big government. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are also good days in America because people like you at events like this all over this country and all over the state are standing up for this country and for this Constitution that guides it. Now, I have 4 documents that I want to talk about here for a couple of minutes. We've got the Constitution, we've got my concealed handgun license, we've got my House of Representatives voting card, and I borrowed a voter registration card from Tony. Now, these documents are all tied together. The Constitution protects my right to hold this concealed handgun license. The House voting card protects the Constitution. The voter registration card protects the Constitution. But you know what? The Second Amendment that's in this document protects all of them. Now, think about that for a minute. The Second Amendment is what protects everything else that's in the Constitution. It's what keeps a government from going beyond its rightful powers. Now, we're here to celebrate the freedoms that our founding fathers designed for our country and its citizens. These are the same freedoms that they and their neighbors and their friends fought for bravely. They are the freedoms that our military men and women have fought and died to protect. A little over 225 years ago, on September 27th, 1787, our founding fathers signed the most important document in American history, the U.S. Constitution. Today, more than ever, we must remain ever vigilant and committed to restoring our founders' visions of a limited federal government, individual liberty, and states' rights. The Constitution is the framework that gives us our personal liberties, and the way the Constitution is structured is like this. It says that the rights of people come from God, and that the only rights available to government based on our Constitution are those that are given to it by the people only. Or as our gentleman says out here, period. Most other governments assume that they have all the power and that they grant individuals their rights and liberties. It is very important that we as Texans pay attention to the Constitution, make sure it's taught in our schools, and if it's not taught in our schools, then we have a duty to teach it to our children and to our grandchildren. And we can do that so that we can make sure that the federal government does not encroach on our personal liberties or on states' rights. Today, the president and his allies want to limit one of the freedoms that all of us gathered today hold dear, our Second Amendment right to keep and to bear arms. They're willing to use tragedies to advance their pre-existing gun control agenda. And rather than focusing on the root cause, which is violence, they want to focus on certain types of weapons. They are wrong, and we won't let them get away with it. As Mark said a few minutes ago, the Second Amendment is the fundamental part of the Bill of Rights. The Supreme Court has ruled that the Second Amendment means exactly what it says, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right is being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, period. So, there's nothing, as Mark said, that's hard to understand about that. And in Congress, I, like many of my colleagues, continue to work to protect the freedoms of all Americans, which are guaranteed under our Constitution, especially those liberties of law-abiding gun owners. And you can be rest assured that I will not sit idly by as the president and Washington liberals try to take away our freedoms and our constitutionally protected rights to possess and carry firearms. It is evident, it's self-evident, you see it every day, that the restrictions on gun ownership don't reduce crime. The cities that have, like Chicago, which has the toughest gun laws in the country, has the worst violence rate in the country. And so trampling on the rights of peaceful gun owners it doesn't work, and it's wrong, and we're going to stop it, and folks like you are going to protect it. I was stronger in the Second Amendment, as you heard a minute ago from Mark. I'm an A-plus rated member, or A-plus member of Congress, rated by the NRA, life member of the NRA. And I want to focus on the things that cause violence. Why is it that somebody picks up a weapon of any kind, a hammer, a shoe, a set of keys, an airplane, and hurts somebody else? Why do they do it? What's underlying that? Let's focus on those issues. Let's not focus on the weapon. Because when you focus on the weapon, you take that thing, those items, away from people who are lawfully entitled to own them and to carry them. But we have a battle in front of us. We have a president who callously disregards the Constitution. He callously disregards the powers of Congress that are given to it by the Constitution. He disregards the rulings of the courts. And most importantly, he disregards the will of the American people. It is our duty, we tried in November, but we're going to try again. It is our duty to stand up and to make sure that our voices are heard and that we will not stand to have our liberties and our freedoms taken away. Instead of focusing on limiting our rights as Americans, why doesn't he focus on upholding the Constitution? Why doesn't he focus on trying to help our private sector get off its knees so it can create good-paying American jobs for Texans right here? Why doesn't he do those types of things? Well, I can guarantee you this. There are a bunch of us in the House of Representatives that wear the same R behind their name that I do. And we're working for those things. We're working to uphold our Constitution. We're working to uphold, to create better paychecks and more paychecks for Texans. And we're working to uphold our God-given rights. Congress should adhere to the words of the Constitution and to work to reaffirm and to restore the limited set of powers of the federal government as envisioned by our nation's founders. I'd like to thank you for turning out today. I would encourage each of you to continue praying for our country during these difficult times. In particular, I'd ask you to pray for our military men and women that protect us from our external enemies. And I'd ask you to pray for our first responders that protect us from our internal dangers. There are two families I'd like you to pray for today. I'd like you to pray for the families of the two firefighters that died a week ago last Friday. I'd also ask for you to pray for the family of a Burleson County resident, Ricky Manti, and also for Mitch Moran, who were injured trying to protect us as first responders. God bless you. God bless America. And thank you for keeping our country strong.
Folks, we are very fortunate to have Bill representing us in Congressional District 17. And thank you so much again for coming out. Again, folks, put your hands together for Bill Flores. Thank you so much. He brought something up. He said, we need to be analyzing what causes somebody to do harm on somebody else. And folks, law-abiding citizens want to protect their families, and they want to protect their possessions. But how will government trample our rights? Law-abiding citizens want to protect their family and possessions, but law-abiding citizens, unfortunately, in most parts, will turn their guns over if asked to, so they don't lose their station or jeopardize their livelihood or their place in the society. We say they won't, but look what took place in Australia. We talk big. We say from our cold, dead fingers, but just look at what happened in Australia. The law-abiding citizens, with everything to lose, obliged their totalitarian government and they turned over their guns. The lawless don't care. The lawless won't register. The lawless, in most cases, don't have the station in life nor the assets or the clean record to jeopardize. You know, many of us, if we're arrested, depending on your occupation, you can lose your job, subsequently your home, and everything in your life. The lawless don't have anything to lose in many cases. And in fact, many of today's youth view their first stint in incarceration as a badge of honor. They won't be turning over their guns, and we'll be the ones infringed. Before we go to our next speaker, I do want to take the opportunity. I want to thank our band, the Providence Ironworks. Would y'all please put your hands together for them, coming out and playing for us. Absolutely amazing good music. And Thomas Clancy for donating his time to come out and run our sound. He's a sound engineer, and folks, I tell you what, stop and get his card. You may not see a need for him now, but if you do, get his card, and he'd be great for weddings and any other function you might have. He does a super job. And lastly, I want to thank David Osgood, who took the time to put this out, put this together, and arrange all this. David, thank you very much. It's a lot of work to put one of these programs on. Now we have quite a treat. We're going to have another speaker come up for just a couple minutes before we have Don Lux come up. We're going to have Dr. Gene Howard. Yes, he looks a lot like somebody I think you'll know. So he's going to have a quick little poem to come and tell us. So if you would please put your hands together for Dr. Gene Howard, better known as John Wayne.
Well, good morning, pilgrims, little ladies. Howdy. I'm going to do a poem for you I did at the National NRA meeting in '94 for the board of directors of both the Rifleman and the Hunter magazines, if you collect the magazines. You can also get a parchment copy of this and in my poem book at genehoward.org, genehoward.org if you want more of my materials that God has given to me. I went there and did this poem for them because I believed in 1994 that our religious liberties were being threatened. But you tell me, when God gave me this poem in 94, or 93 actually, was it a little bit prophetic? Does it mean more today than it did then? I'll let you be the judge. Do you want my gun or do you want my life? Do you want my gun or do you want my wife? Do you want my gun or do you want my store? Do you want just my gun or much, much more? What is it you really want, I must ask myself, for it's one of the few freedoms that we have left. Maybe it's something more political you seek, but cannot accomplish unless we become weak. I think of Hitler, Lenin, Stalin, and the rest, fooling the people into thinking they knew best, and they traded their arms for hoes and wooden staves. They traded their freedom, and they wound up slaves. For when the people can no longer defend their rights, their days become filled with sleepless nights, and soon their fears become much, much more when the secret police knocks at the door. They took them, their family from their home, and without a trial, they locked them up alone. No visitors, no place they could appeal, for they were politically incorrect to party zeal. Today, most of us are politically incorrect. And what do the liberals want us to button check? That's right, our guns. They want us to turn them in. For as long as we have them, socialism cannot win. And each day our liberal government denies our rights as God-fearing people are placed in their sights. So I will keep my gun, and I will use it if I must to defend my inherited right to say, in God we trust. For the very foundation of this great land of ours is now being threatened. And it may only be hours until God is completely removed from every part and this country is stripped of its very heart. For freedom of religion is no longer a right, but a battleground for which we must fight. So if you ask me for my gun, the answer is no. Try to take it, and if there's a hell, you'll know.